Hey everyone, welcome to the Derek London podcast. So, although I've been talking lots about books these past 3 years I've been on YouTube, I've never done any of those popular tags yet, like TBRs, DNFs, hauls, unpopular opinions, unhauls, tropes, wrap ups. So, I intend to do a lot more of that now. After much denial and self loathing, I've come to accept that I'm officially a bona fide book nerd. There's no getting around it. So this video is my first TBR. I'm really excited to be getting into some literature I've been putting off for far too long. Anyway, let's get right into it. Stay right there. Alright peeps, tell me in the comments below what you'll be reading this month. Also, as you'll see, I want to get exposed to a lot more classics now. My tastes tend to take me towards nonfiction, philosophy, politics, psychology, self-help, that sort of thing. I'm not big into fantasy or YA, so if you have any classic recs for November TBR, I'd love to hear from you. Okay, enough rambling. Because I'm an incredibly busy person, I can really only dedicate a couple hours of reading every day, so I plan to commit myself to 4 books this month. 3 of them are physical copies, and the other will be a nonfiction advanced reading copy in digital format, an eARC. The first that's on my list is For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemmingway. I'm really excited to get into this one. I don't know how I've not read Hemingway in the 32 years I've been alive. Have you guys read this? Do you have any suggestions on how I should approach it? Now, while I've not read any Hemingway, I do know a fair bit about the man. There was a nonfiction book that I had read some years ago, which Hemingway was brought up in repeatedly. It's called Hell in Good Company, written by Richard Rhodes. Hell in Good Company spoke all about the Spanish Civil War, which is apparently what inspired Hemingway to author For Whom the Bell Tolls. For those who don't know, Hemingway at the time was the best-known journalist in the world. While he was pretty wealthy and likely the most protected columnist in that theater, I think he had an incredible perspective. So basically, from what I gather on the back, the scene is set in 1937, just following the aerial bombardment of Guernica. The main character, Robert Jordan, is an explosives expert who joins the Republican resistance, so he'd be fighting against Franco's nationalist movement. Jordan assists a guerrilla unit tasked to blow up a bridge near Segovia and falls in love with a woman named Maria who's been devastated by the conflict. I'm so excited to delve into this one. Based on my impressions of Hemingway, I suspect he'll become a personal favorite, so there's a lot riding on this one. I hope I haven't been overhyped for it. So that's my first TBR for October. The next one's a little closer to home for my reading taste. I've read this author a few times before. He's generally mentioned in the same breath as Hemingway, and interestingly, he fought in the Spanish Civil War too. That should be a dead giveaway. I'm speaking, of course, about George Orwell. Now, I've read the main works of Orwell, 1984, Animal Farm, and a couple of his essays, such as Politics in the English Language, and they were all fascinating to me. So October's assignment, Down and Out in Paris and London, is also really exciting for me. Based on a lot of my political interests, Orwell just amazes me. I believe he's the most profound anti-totalitarian activist of the 20th century. George Orwell deserves so much credit in my opinion. He was undereducated, he was always sick, always poor, and didn't get to enjoy his posthumous fame. If I'm not mistaken, he died just shortly after writing 1984, and that's when it went on to become the powerhouse that it did. 1984 hangs with Hannah Arendt's Origins of Totalitarianism, which, depending on what's going on in the world, still manages to top the charts for book sales from time to time. That's what happened most recently with the 2 books following Donald Trump taking power in 2016. There's so many amazing things to say about Orwell. I find the knife edge that his greatest works exist on is nothing short of amazing. What I mean is, during the Spanish Civil War, Orwell got shot right in the neck, with the bullet just narrowly avoiding all of his vital organs. And I often wonder how differently history would have played out should that bullet have strayed millimeters to the right or the left. In other words, what kind of a world would we live in had 1984 not been written? In another video I intend to film soon, you'll see that I've been reading a lot about the UN Sustainable Development Goals and much of the other initiatives that have been implemented to reduce poverty, among many other things. So Down and Out in Paris and London will be such a great complement to that. Now, with all this speak about the Spanish Civil War, Down and Out takes place several years prior to that, in 1929, where Orwell arrives in Paris. He basically runs out of money, has to live in Dickensian squalor and toil as a dishwasher just to survive. This book basically documents all that, so I'm really looking forward to that one. All right, now moving on to my third book for this month, which is another classic. I've certainly read a lot about Plato and the ancient Greek philosophers, but this will be the first time I've ever read Plato's Republic. To be perfectly honest, I'm not really sure how much I'll enjoy this one. It's more like required reading for me at this point. For those of you who know my philosophic interests, I have no idea how I've not read this yet, so you'll have to stay tuned for the book review, I guess. Much of the nonfiction stuff I've read have heavily quoted Plato. I can't tell you how many times I've read about Plato's cave, the trial of Socrates, and just how far we've come since ancient Greece in terms of our understanding of justice, which is the main thrust of the Republic as I understand. But there's nothing wrong with getting back to basics, right? I'm sure I'll still enjoy myself. And for those of you who've read it, maybe let me know in the comments below if there's any ancillary material you'd recommend with this. It might help me as I go through it. Which brings me to the final book I'll likely read in October. This one might change actually. I'm a reviewer on NetGalley, which is a platform where authors can invite readers to review their books prior to their publication. Now, I have a perfect reviewing record, so I can't imagine I'd be turned down, but the request is still pending, so this book still might change. Stop right there. Hold up. All right, peeps, so I'm just going to interrupt for a second right here. I want to show you something. You see that ratio? Look at that. 86%. 86 freaking percent of you watching are not subscribed. Why don't you like me? What are you even doing anyways? So the next time we see this little animation, what are we gonna do? Damn straight. Okay, I hate to have to set you straight like that, but it's for your own good. I don't want to have this conversation again, you understand? Anyways, as I was saying. It drops on November 9th, and it's called Justice on the Brink, subtitled The Death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, The Rise of Amy Coney Barrett, and 12 Months That Transformed the Supreme Court. Not the most catchy of subtitles. I don't really know how that made it to publication like that, but it's been long anticipated for me for a number of reasons. Justice on the Brink is written by Linda Greenhouse, who's a Pulitzer Prize-winning law columnist for the New York Times. Now, having just read the former Canadian Supreme Court Chief Justice Beverly McLaughlin's memoir, called Truth Be Told, her most recent novel entitled Denial, and especially coming on the heels of Texas' new anti-abortion law, I'm really chomping at the bit for this one. Now, Amy Coney Barrett seems to me to be similar to Justice Clarence Thomas in a way. Thomas has been extremely outspoken on race matters and distributive justice, and is not dissimilar to Thomas Sowell in his obscurantism and promulgation of black inferiority. Well, similarly, and I don't know how these people are promoted upwards in American society, Amy Coney Barrett is everything that is paradoxical about modern conservatism. As an accomplished woman who owes so much of her success to brave feminist trailblazers before her, legends like Ginsburg and Sotomayor, Coney Barrett is so anti-woman in much of her views. I just don't understand it. But this happens a lot on the right wing, the kind of voices they promote. I'm thinking of people like Star Parker, Milo Yiannopoulos, Dave Rubin, Candace Owens, and so many others. It's a kind of gaslighting conservatives revel in. Now, I anticipate that many conservatives watching this would protest that I'm a toxic collectivist for saying such a thing. To suggest that because Amy Coney Barrett is a woman, she should be pro-choice. Or to say that because Rubin and Yiannopoulos are gay, they shouldn't be conservative or Catholic in the case of Milo. Or to say that because Justice Thomas is black, he should be in favor of affirmative action and opposed to what Republicans represent. But that argument that I'm being collectivist just doesn't wash with me, and I'll tell you why. These people are not promoted up the ranks because they've evolved the conversation in any meaningful way. It's the same worn-out slogans, predictably skewed and unscientific data that Republicans bandy about. Another common theme is that they're not really affirmative in any way. They're just anti-liberal, that's it. So why are people like Amy Coney Barrett and the others that I mentioned moved up the conservative hierarchy? I'll tell you. It's because the optics of having a black jurist against affirmative action, the optics of a homosexual who's right-wing or Catholic, the optics of a female justice who's pro-life is initially so compelling. It gives them an appearance of objectivity, but it's about as unobjective as it gets. The fact that these individuals are promoted because of their unpredictable views, given their gender, race, sexuality, and religion, because they're like the Jewish anti-Zionist, because they're like the slave-owning free man or have an air of Uncle Tom, that's about the most corrupt and manipulative example of toxic collectivism one can imagine. That's why the argument doesn't sit right with me. I think all of these people suffer from Stockholm Syndrome. Isn't that the appeal of Amy Coney Barrett? It's not just that she is a pro-lifer, it's the fact that she's a woman and a pro-lifer. Isn't that the appeal of Candace Owens? It's not just that she's a woman talking about race matters, it's that she's a pretty black woman talking about race matters. And then out the other side of their mouth, they say that the left is so toxic and collectivist. It's like, really? So I'm definitely looking forward to reading how Amy Coney Barrett got moved up the ranks and how the ill-gotten nominations of her colleagues, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, spell hard times for the judiciary of the United States. So hopefully I'm given an advanced reading copy. I've kind of got my hopes up, as you can tell. Let me know what you think of all that in the comments. Don't forget to make some recommendations for November, preferably some classics. And I'll see you in the next one. Till then. Hey everyone, I hope you liked this video. We put up some incredibly transformative content on this channel. If you want more like the one you just watched, click the suggested video on this screen. Make sure you subscribe, and to connect with me on my other platforms, my handles are linked below in the description, alright? Take care, peeps. Till next time.